We are now joined by a panel of experts to talk about the top trends they are seeing in the talent pool in 2022. Now, remember to get your questions in nice and early so that we have the chance to answer them whilst we are on stage. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome up to the panel to the virtual stage here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Looks like we're having a few technical issues. Here we go. Fantastic. Welcome all to the panel. A really great topic to discuss today. We've got a bit of a variety of thought leader here on the panel, so I think it'd be best if we start off with an introduction. Roberta, if you wouldn't mind going first.
Sure. My name is Roberta Hyland. I am the Chief Data Officer for the National Student Clearinghouse in the tertiary education sector of the United States.
Thank you, Roberta. Jasper, a quick intro from you.
Yeah, hi, Jasper Milliken. I'm the Executive Director of Business Intelligence for the Colorado Permanente Medical Group here in Denver, Colorado.
Thank you, Jasper. And Joshua.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So yes, I am the Director of Data and Analytics for a behavioral health and eating disorder organization called Alsana. I'm also located in Denver, Colorado.
Well, thank you, each of you, for joining us today. And as I mentioned at the top there, a really interesting and very important conversation to have today, and something that I'm sure many of our audience members are grappling with at the moment. Now, let's do some setting of the scene. I'm going to do a quick whip around the panel. How many positions are you currently hiring for at the moment, Joshua?
So I'm currently hiring only for one, although I probably need about 10. But I'm currently hiring for one, and right now I don't have the bandwidth for 10 just because we have some budget restrictions. But right now it's just one.
Okay, Roberta. Oh, 1 second. Looks like we're having some tech challenges there. If you wouldn't mind starting that again, Roberta.
Sure. I'm hiring for two, but I'm also actively leveraging outsourced talent too.
Okay, and Jasper?
Yeah, I have one active posting that's out there, and then two that we're working through the recruiting process right now to get posted. So within the month, there will be 3 positions total that I'll be hiring and recruiting for.
Well, no shock there. Everyone's hiring for data analytics talent. I think I would have been stopped in my tracks if you said, no, we're not hiring at all. We're done and dusted. I think I'd be put in a pretty awkward position then. Now, the next setting of the scene, and a potentially more sensitive question, but I've got to ask it, is how many of you have lost team members over the last couple of months or year or so to other opportunities that for whatever reason you weren't able to keep them for? Same way around, Joshua.
Yeah, sure. So I've only been at Alsana for a few months, so have not lost anyone to attrition. However, when I was the director, also at Kaiser Permanente, Colorado, I did actually realize some pretty significant loss in talent. I think in total, I think I lost like 4 folks. Some of that was due to retirement, and some of that was due to other opportunities.
Okay, that's interesting. You've got the retirement piece there as well as other opportunities. Thank you. Roberta, how about yourself? How many of you, or have you lost anyone?
Yeah, in the last year, I've lost 2. And I think one of the things is, so I'm outside of Washington, D.C., so it's a tech corridor, highly competitive. And also being a nonprofit organization competing with the likes of, let's say, Google, Amazon, you really need to find talent that's really invested in a nonprofit mission. So in many respects, I'm glad that I've only lost 2, but that's part of the dynamic.
Yeah, well, an interesting element there as well, the nonprofit. This is going to be such a great conversation. I can just see it now. So many ingredients to this. And then Jasper, how about yourself? Have you lost anyone over the last year?
Yeah, lost about four. Some have been, a loss to the organization. Others have been just a loss to the department, but and then a move to a different area of the organization. So, obviously, we try to retain them within the organization. So if somebody moves on within KP, then that's kind of a good thing. It's really those losses to the organization that loss of institutional knowledge there that hurts the most.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, just in the first 4 minutes of the session here, we've covered some big things here, from whether it's talent that's retiring, talent that perhaps can find other opportunities that have better salaries attached to them, as opposed to what can sometimes be offered by nonprofit and public sector. And then, as you say, Jasper, being stolen away by the other business functions, which we can't say doesn't annoy us. We're in a safe space, we're in a data space, we can say it here. So yeah, a very big and disruptive situation for us all. And I wanted to begin by setting the scene there, just so that the audience members can take a bit of pressure off their shoulders, that it may not necessarily be a them and their team thing, and that actually, as an industry and just the sectors that we have on this panel here, are experiencing these challenges. So let's dive into it. I'd like to know from each of you how you're dealing with the challenges of hiring and retaining talent, what you're doing proactively to solve these challenges. Jasper, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a challenge, and I've noticed that the people that we have lost are typically a lot of people with a lot of years of experience and history with the organization, and I think what we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years is there's a lot of people that are just looking for something different, either a shift to a new industry, just somewhere different that they can apply their skills, right? And I've seen that with a lot of people with a lot of experience, and so I think it's it's in the organization's best interest to be able to provide them new and different opportunities within the company, right? Because I think a lot of people are looking for that. I think just with the environment, the pandemic and everything, people have just they're kind of, well, I just kind of want to do something different, right? And I've seen that it's not necessarily the people that we've hired within the past 2 or 3 years that are leaving. It's those that have been here quite a while, which again, it's that institutional knowledge piece. So I think providing those career pathways, both with upward mobility, but also sometimes lateral mobility into just new areas and different things to try out is important.
I'm really glad that you brought in the context of COVID as well, because I think that's given us all, in our personal lives, in our professional lives, that moment to just stop and think, which perhaps we haven't been afforded very much in our kind of professional journey. You turn 18, you become an adult, and suddenly it's a huge freight train of an experience. And the pandemic really did pause many things for us to actually assess that. And in fact, I was interviewed about a year ago now, asking kind of what makes a data and analytics person. And I said the two things were curiosity and growth. You tend to find that they are the most curious people, and they're really keen to grow and learn. And I think you've tapped on exactly that, in the fact that they are curious. And if you don't have the ability to feed them new things all the time, then unfortunately they may go out and find it elsewhere, which is a big challenge, because as we've been discussing throughout the Business of Data Festival, we do need to align with the business strategy, and sometimes that can be a little bit mundane, and it can be a little monotonous as well. So big challenges there. Thank you, Jasper. Roberta, how about you? What are you doing to deal with the big challenges of hiring and retaining talent?
So luckily we're undergoing a technology change. So I've got a lot of exciting data related work. So that's compelling for both current staff to learn new things, as well as to bring new people in with new skills. So that's a positive. But definitely COVID was a tremendous impact. So one of the things that we did, I declared the chief data office to be remote first. So that opened up my ability to recruit, obviously, outside of our immediate two offices in Pittsburgh and the Washington, D.C. area. The other thing that we emphasize is training. And so making sure that the data and analytics staff not only have the time to leverage new technologies, obviously we're working on some big projects, but also that they have time and access to tools to gain additional knowledge. So those have been two big aspects. The last one is our mission, being in the education sector, is extremely important. And so when we can emphasize to the data and analytics staff as to how their work is impactful on the education community and students and learners, that also brings another level of enjoyment to the work, appreciation for the work, and willingness to explore more.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day actually about that it's got to be meaningful, that people really, it's, again, since the pandemic, is people really are looking to make a difference, and that actually this is really played into organizations like yours, actually, Roberta, where it is a case that you can, feel good about the work you're doing. For sure. Thank you. Joshua, how about yourself?
Yeah, and so I guess first I'll focus on the retention piece. So so I have a very small team right now, and so my predecessor, I would say that the person that was in this position before me, I think that there was a lack of delegation of a lot of work and a lot of opportunity for kind of the younger folks that are on my team. And so, one of the first things that I did was identified, what that person, what my team was doing on a regular basis, and really assessing and saying, okay, you have, some talent, so let's start using that. And so, having those discussions with the folks and saying, okay, what are you doing? Are you happy? Do you want to be challenged more? And overwhelmingly, they were like, yes, we need more of a challenge, because we felt that we were held back from, my predecessor. And so I've actually loaded on more things to my team where their strengths are. And that's actually, I think it's actually been very positive as of late, because I'm seeing a lot more response, a lot more productivity out of the team, and they're a lot more engaged as well. So that's the first thing. So in terms of bringing folks on, so kind of similar to Roberta, like we're going through like a massive restructuring of data and analytics within Alsana, all the way down from data governance and information management, because it was essentially, it's essentially not existent. And so for me, I need to find like some superstar unicorns that have like a little bit of data and analytics experience, a little bit of data engineering experience, a little bit of DBA experience. So I need those magic unicorns. At the same time, I know that the folks like that would be very expensive. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me. So that's one of the things that I have to think through is, okay, I definitely need some assistance in terms of like the infrastructure piece and getting our databases and data warehouses like in working order. And so that's going to be the significant challenge for me from an actually recruiting perspective.
Yeah, there's some great points there, and I love the self-awareness over the need for a unicorn, but perhaps not the budget for one. Because and one of the follow-up questions I want to ask each of you is kind of, as you look on LinkedIn and other various recruitment sites, and you look at some of the job advertisements, do you think the way that we advertise and kind of celebrate these jobs needs to change a little bit? Because I must admit, some jobs you open up and it's 3 whole pages of got to be good at coding, but then you've got to be good at storytelling, you've got to be good at all these things, and then it's got to be 20 plus years of this experience and all the rest. By the time you get to the end of it and you're like, is this an actual human being? Because I would be petrified of them. Because that's one hell of a human. So what sort of or how would you like to see that change from your perspective in collaborating with HR and the various functions to be successful in that way? And Joshua, I'll put it back to you first.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, it does seem like a lot of job postings seem very unrealistic, given especially how new this general area is. And so I think it's up to HR and the leadership to kind of hone in on those skills and abilities, because it is very rare for someone to have all of that experience and those abilities, at least in what I've seen so far. And so I think it's just a function of saying, okay, we need to find, folks with these pretty specialized roles and functions, in addition to also being able to communicate to senior leadership the reason why you need to have, 5 people instead of 2, because we need this specialized experience in order to do things the correct way within the organization. At least that's the battle that I'm fighting right now, saying, hey, I need to have a very strong senior analyst to kind of help me build out this function. Essentially, I need a solid DBA, and I need a solid data engineer. I need 3 folks in order to make something happen. And especially coming from an organization where data and analytics is, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but it's like, okay, it is a cost. It's a cost center, right? And so you need to justify that cost. And so it definitely is. It definitely is a difficult conversation to have. But I think the more and more I have those conversations with the exec team, and the more holes that we find in a lot of our processes and data, they're starting to then realize that, hey, maybe this is the way we need to go.
Yeah, really very interesting. Thank you. Jasper, how about yourself? Do you want to see a change in the way that we engage with the market for our jobs?
Yeah, I think, with technology and the platforms and the flexibility these days, there's a lot of different ways to solve problems, right? And I think what a lot of job descriptions don't do is they don't focus enough on outlining the problems that they want to be solved through this job, right? It's like, well, we need you to have these skills, these tools, and come in, and this is the scope of work, versus like, these are the problems we're trying to solve, because then you can I think it shifts the interviewing and the conversation, right, to more of them being able to show how they may be able to bring something different to the table to solve a problem, and not just, that you have to be pigeonholed into this, into this specific tool or skill set. And so it just brings, I think it would bring and I'm guilty of this too, of like, here's the scope of work, here's the tools that you'll have, try and fit within this mold, right? It's more, here's the problems that I'm trying to solve. Please tell me how your unique skill set and experience can help us with that. And I think it could, create a better conversation. So I'd like to see job descriptions evolve to a little bit more of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love.
Oh, go for it, Josh.
No, I love that, Jasper, because I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the folks that we're looking for, I mean, innately they're problem solvers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Roberta.
Yeah, for me, it comes back to what you opened with, was they're curious people. That's who we're looking for, and that's kind of what thrives in the data and analytic positions. So when you look at job descriptions, you're right, it's a horrible process. I mean, when you think about it, it's all about quantitative things, number of years, as we've all talked about. And ultimately, in many respects, because you're trying to assess that problem solving, you're trying to assess that intellectual curiosity, it's a qualitative decision in many respects. It's like, yes, you do need to know, like, do you know specific technologies? Do you have specific skills? But you have to pay attention to the skill adjacencies. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've seen a job description on LinkedIn as an example that I've ever liked. And it's like, so what do you learn through that process? And it is. It's the feel you get for the person, the intellectual curiosity, and the problem solving that you're looking for. And it's very rare that you're going to find that coming through just because of a job description and a resume.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just to add in, we know from research as well that those who identify as female are more likely to wait until they feel they fit about 80% of the criteria as well. And if we know that we're already listing, an ideal scenario, that's going to impact so much on who is pulling into this. And we've covered it here at the festival over the last 2 days. We're not going to be able to solve some of the big problems that we're being presented in the data analytics community if all of our teams look and come from the same backgrounds. So I do really think this is kind of one of the very root situations that we have to solve as a community in order to get better and filter through into those other challenges.
Yeah, and I think one other thing that it does, though, is it also creates barriers of entry for newer skill and younger people. So like one of the things when we sort of look at it from an organizational design perspective in a chief data office, I want to make sure I have roles that enable newer talent to enter, to gain skills, and that requires an organizational commitment. I mean, if you're going to invest in newer talent, those that are growing, you have to, one, be prepared to do that, and then two, be invested in the type of career pathing that's required, and once again, the resources on training.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One of my favorites is when you see a graduate role that says 3+ years of experience. Always think that's fantastic to see. Now, obviously, the title of the session here today is Predictive Top Trends. So I want to ask you all, in the market, what are you noticing at the moment in terms of what you can see coming your way from the industry when it comes to talent? Is there new sets of people, new skills coming, or requirements for you in the future that you're going to be looking out for? What's the future looking like for each of you? Roberta, I'll come straight back to you for that.
So it really comes back to something that Joshua said about I'm going to use the term specialized skills, and making sure that you're breaking your work into those components so that you have that hyper focus, but then you bring the entire team together. So needless to say, it's like you've got to be doing your data engineering very well. You've got to be doing your data ecosystem management very well. You have to be enabling if you want to call them citizen data scientists, very well. And what that means, needless to say, is more machine learning, more AI. In our industry, what is the role of blockchain style objects, all those types of things. So that's where we're focused.
Okay, Jasper, how about yourself? What are you seeing coming your way?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a keen interest in the advanced analytics spaces of, data science, machine learning, AI. I would say from an individual perspective, right, I'll kind of go back to what I'd said at the beginning is you're definitely seeing, some new graduates and stuff like that coming out, but you're seeing people with a lot of years of experience, right, that are looking for a change in a new either industry or a new field. And so I think it's super important to, when you're in that interviewing process, is to really find out what they were doing in the past and what they're looking for that's different, right? Because the last thing you want is to like bring somebody on and then all of a sudden they're like, this is kind of a lot of the same that I was doing, and then they leave, right? Just due to the investment of onboarding and training people, right? So you really need to understand, especially with people that are coming with a lot of experience. And working in healthcare, we get a lot of that. People, hey, I've been either working in the finance industry or I've been working in, oil and gas or something like that, and I'd really love to get into maybe a more mission-driven industry and get into healthcare, right? And so, really understanding and making sure that you can provide what they're looking for, and if not, knowing when is just not going to be a good fit, right? Even though like the talent level and the skills and all of that may be very attractive, right? If you really can't give them that change or that difference that they're looking for, then you're better served, in and maybe going out and going with somebody else that your job description is much more tailored to. So yeah, just
really interesting. Joshua, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, and so in terms of what I'm seeing and kind of goes along with the comment that I made before was, right now I'm just focused on, basic building block type of stuff. But the vision is, once we've got to a point where we're mature enough in our journey, definitely, finding some folks with some good ML AI advanced analytics experience will definitely be important. And also to kind of leveraging some stuff that Jasper said. I think it's really important to once again keep those people engaged, and also being very clear in terms of what your mission, what you're trying to achieve, all that good stuff, because it's these folks, they're in high demand, and the last thing you want to do is bring someone in and spend all that money on recruiting and have them flip in 3 to 6 months because the job is not what they expected, or the work is not what they expected. So I think that is one of the biggest things that I've seen over the past several months. And whether that will slow down, if we go into a slowdown economically, that's going to be interesting to see if that is the case.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I made the joke earlier, obviously, about the business coming in and stealing your folk because they've transferred to other units. But obviously, it can work the other way around as well, that you could find people who are really excited about data analytics or show a particular passion, and you could coax them across to the data analytics function. And I wonder what your thoughts are with that, of finding internal talent and kind of building them up and building their capabilities, that perhaps they can take part of that into their business function, whether they own it and kind of have that federated model, or whether perhaps you do bring them in and really skill them up into being an analyst or something similar. I wonder what your thoughts are with that. Roberta, I'll come to you first.
So yeah, that once again, to me, that comes down to organizational commitment. So often when you're hiring, you're like, oh, I need this person ready to hit the ground running. And if it's internal talent, chances are it's once again one of those more growth. They're doing something, they've got some skills, but they probably need that still some more development in it. And so we're obviously dealing with education data in a variety of different ways in our organization, even separate from what you're doing in the data and analytics area. So yeah, that's actually an area we want to spend more time, where you have someone that's used to a certain role. They obviously know the education data really well, but they haven't had a lot of practical experience, let's say doing data engineering. So they go ahead and they get their associates or their bachelor's degree. And it's like, okay, well, now we want to bring you into that career path. And you have to have that organizational commitment to do that, and have, once again, the tools. So while they may have done the associate's degree or the bachelor's degree, well, you want to help them get on the path to some of the very technology specific certificates too.
Really interesting take there. Joshua, how about yourself?
Yeah, I've actually identified someone that I want to steal right now. So yeah, I've made some I guess you say some comments to some of the senior execs in identifying some of those folks that I think would be a great fit within my organization based off of what I've seen so far. However, at least in my organization, there's unfortunately there's a pretty big turnover ratio, and so if I try to go steal someone, there might be a little bit of there might be some conversations being had. So that definitely is the challenge there when looking for folks internally. But that being said, like Roberta said, I fully, I think that is absolutely crucial for organizations to, set up that program, that path for folks that either display the ability or have the desire to go over to data and analytics. And I think it's good for anyone at any level to basically have that program in place to just keep people skilled, keep them engaged, keep them going on the path that they want to go within the organization. And I don't think many companies have that in place now. And so I don't know if you call it like a center of excellence, or other type of training functions within organizations, but I think it's crucial. I really do.
Yeah, very much so. Now, here at the Business of Data, we're going to be releasing a mini series. In fact, one of the first episodes went out last week of how some of our thought leaders that we do content with got into data. And pretty much all of them, it was quite organic in the sense of they may not have done the most traditional degree or education, but they ended up being the so-called data person because it ended up being in various offices. They were like, oh, that person knows something about it. And suddenly they find themselves in these data roles. And I think it kind of lends into what you've been saying there, Roberta and Joshua, as well, that it's a case of engaging these people and then just keeping them there. So it's an organic growth, so that when you're at the point of having that organization culture ready for them to step across, the resource and everything else as well. Jasper, how about yourself when it comes to bringing people back into the team?
Yeah, definitely, and I see it a lot in healthcare, right? So what's key is having operational workflow knowledge, and so it's very important. You don't necessarily see it that much from like a clinical staff moving into data analytics, but if somebody's been working in like as in a business management type of capacity within a clinic or within a medical setting, right, they've gotten so much operational knowledge and workflow knowledge and then they start to delve into the data, right, and they're starting to use like some of the analytics and reporting, and then they start to really kind of migrate towards that type of pathway. And that's a really attractive type of person that has that operational knowledge that you can bring in, because you can train them up on the data. I mean, what's hard is that subject matter expertise of how, what happens on the front end that creates all of that data on the back end, right? And I think that's we love to see people come from that have some operational skill set and have worked in the clinics, and then kind of get that that data bug underneath their skin and want to move into a different type of field. So yeah, see that a lot.
It's so funny because I literally wrote down as the follow-up question that I wanted to ask the panel was about if there is someone in the audience perhaps who's not in your industry, but they've heard you speak and thought, goodness me, I'm going to apply for that one role you've got available, but perhaps they haven't come from your industry and don't have that kind of sector knowledge. How much of that you kind of put importance on in a case of, it is incredibly important that we put context into our data, so it's helpful to have that, but how much of an onus would you put on that when it comes to making that decision to hire or not? And what would you suggest to people who are thinking about really switching industry as well? Joshua, I wonder if you could take that one.
Sure. So I'm going to say it's that's not one of the top priorities for me, because I've been in probably a few different industries in my career. So and so that's not the most important thing to me. I think learning flexibility is the most important thing. If you have those basic skills, if you have a lot of curiosity, and you have the ability and the desire to learn a new industry, that's the most important thing. I mean, if you're a smart person, I think that you can grasp pretty much you can grasp switching industries. So yeah, it's not a big deal for me.
Okay, Roberta, what's your vote?
So I'll go with it depends on the role and it depends on the other components of your team. But that being said, like when you're thinking about education and education data, there are your curious, talented people, much to what Joshua was saying, can show the parallels or demonstrate the parallel thought processes that exist with the financial services industry, with the healthcare industry. Those are probably, like, if I was looking at sort of skill adjacency areas related to education, they work really well. And if you find the right person that has that intellectual curiosity, once again, they're going to be fine. And that's where you get to me, that qualitative element of the interviewing, because you're going to watch their brain make those connections.
Amazing. And then Jasper, I wonder if you wanted to add a bit of flavor to what you said earlier.
Yeah, it's not something that's like a base requirement, right? It's a nice to have, and it could be a differentiator, right? If you have two people who are really, really close and somebody's got that, specific industry experience, that can definitely help with the onboarding process, right? You can get someone up to speed quicker. But it's not something like, that's a showstopper if they don't have it. And it's not something I would put as a base. It's more of like a preferred type of qualification, but yeah.
Amazing, fantastic. I think we had a little tech moment there. Fantastic. Now, it was mentioned earlier at the top of the conversation, Roberta, I believe it was you, talking about the big technology companies and the salaries that they can offer, and how that can sometimes, really hamper what we can compete with if it just comes down to a numbers game, which, let's be honest, we all have to earn a living. And if someone is offering a very big living, it's going to be difficult to justify. So how much of an impact are you having at the moment with the market? Because it very much seems that there really is no kind of glass ceiling to salaries. It does seem to be going up and up. Jasper, I wonder if you could add some thoughts to that.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's important. We just went through an exercise of, benchmarking exercise of all of our job roles and how do they compare to the market, and trying to get, as competitive as possible. I think salaries always come up. I think what you have to also build in is people sometimes forget about the total compensation packages, right? And like, what can you offer in benefits? What can you offer in flexibility? What can you offer in, in terms of, time off and bonuses and things like that. So, don't let, the salary always, that you're able to focus on the total compensation package, is extremely important there. Right now, I mean, you can't just start with a low ball salary and be like, oh, we're going to pay you this, but you'll love working here, right? It's like, no, you gotta, there's a dollar amount there that you need to be within, otherwise you're just not going to get it. But when you start to compare, you really do have to talk up the total compensation package, just because that's not always highlighted.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the various benefits that companies have started to realize. And again, Roberta, you mentioned as well, having that remote function as well, to some people, that could be a really big part of their livelihood and happiness as well, which may justify that slight salary discrepancy as well. On that point, Roberta, I'll come to you.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is it definitely, probably about 6 months ago, it was really probably at its worst. I think that now people sort of have leveled off, and it is being a little bit more choosy and recognizing it's got to be the right salary. And we did do a review very similarly, but it is about all the components. What is the environment in which I'm working? What is that team element? What am I contributing to a larger goal, like that nonprofit mission? The other thing for me is it also made me think about, how do I form a strong core of key positions and then leverage consultant talent or contractor talent to augment when I've got something big that's going on. And so that means I can invest very much in those positions that I consider key, that I don't want to lose, that I don't want to have a lot of turnover, and give me that flexibility to have a blend.
Amazing. And then Joshua, round us out on this one, please.
Yes, and so yeah, salary is definitely going to be a challenge for us. Given that we're a much smaller organization, even than what the organizations that Roberta or Jasper at. So I mean, that is going to be a big challenge for us. I guess the one caveat is that we can definitely, I guess, advertise the whole, and I guess Jasper had mentioned this before. The fact that we have a little bit more of a mission, and then maybe I get, all the companies have missions, right? But I think more some folks are more tuned to those organizations that have a mission that they either care about or affects them, and eating disorders and behavioral health. I think some folks will see that as something that they can identify with because maybe they know someone who is struggling with those issues. And so I think it's a combination of trying to be as competitive from a compensation and benefit perspective as possible, but once again also layering in the whole purpose behind the organization and the purpose of the work.
Yeah, really, really driving with that. Fantastic. Now, we've only got a few minutes left, but I have seen a fantastic question come in the chat here. Nelly, thank you so much for asking it, because it's a really great question. We haven't really touched on it as well, which is how can we solve the problem rather of contracting positions? Why companies want the best talent and they're not willing to commit to hiring them full time? Really very interesting. Roberta, I wonder if you'll take that one first.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. I will say we don't have a contracting first approach with how we're doing our talent. I think for the way we're doing it, it is going back to, we know we need a strong set of full-time employees that are able to do what we would consider the normal amount, or where we expect to be the normal amount of work. And then using contract for very specific bodies of work. And that's what's going to allow us the flexibility. So I don't think I have a really good answer for this. But that's how we're approaching it, because we know the dangers of being dependent on contractors, and then frankly that knowledge walking out the door, which is not good. So it's a yin and yang. It's got to be in balance.
Absolutely fantastic. Joshua, how about yourself? Nelly's question there.
Yeah, and so and I would say my latest experience with the whole contractor thing at Kaiser, and so I think it was a function of hey, we need someone like yesterday, and I mean the onboarding process, the hiring and onboarding process could be 60, 90 days, right? And when you have an objective, you can't wait that long. And so you can go to that contractor pool and bring someone in within a few weeks time, as long as you have all the internal internal issues taken care of. And so that was really kind of my use of the contractors, just because we had things to do, and we didn't have enough time to really bring people in. And also too, we also looked at, okay, if we bring this person in, is this person also would we want to bring them in as an FTE after we kind of do a try and buy, right? And so that was also my approach.
Okay, and then Jasper, round us out if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, kind of building on what Josh said there, was really if you are going to, use contracting and use that as a way to get people in quickly, I mean, really have a clear plan for contract to hire. If that person really does work out and you want to keep them, like, make sure that it's that you have a clear path to doing that, prior to setting up the contract in the first place.
Amazing. And you may see my eyes flicking to the side because that's my team saying we're running out of time. Please wrap up. This conversation is one that I could have all day long. Thank you, all three of you, for being such engaging guests. Thank you, Nelly, for your question as well. A really interesting end to our discussion there. But thank you, all three of you, for joining me today. Amazing. And
Thank
just
you.
like that, we're now going to be heading into a fireside chat about the future of data science, and we'll be joined with you in a moment's time.